What happened to you when you died? Just before you died and just after you died?
Days before I died, I went blind. Then I had an hemorrhage and I fell asleep and I died in a chair in the corner downstairs.
In 1977, in Enfield, North London, a small semi-detached council house became extremely famous for a series of disturbing paranormal events. At 234 Green Street in Brimsdown, a series of eerie, sadistic phenomena began out of nowhere and was mostly centred around two sisters, Janet, aged 11, and Margaret, aged 13. Some of the strange phenomena were strange voices, objects moving, very strange sounds, and Janet levitating were just a few of the terrifying things that happened in Enfield House. Peggy Hodgson, a divorced mother, was living in the council house in Enfield with her 4 children. It wasn't the greatest time for the family. The children's father had abandoned them, was mostly absent, and Peggy was struggling in poverty.
Let me hear you say my name. Come on, let me hear you say my name. That's not my name. Come on, my name's Morris. Let me hear you say it.
Morris.
Say Dr. Belloff. Come on, let me hear you say that. Come on, let's hear you say Dr. Belloff. Could you close that door down? Say Dr. Belloff. What is it? Just find out what's on this way. Now, if you squeak the bed, I can't hear you talking. Now, say Dr. Belloff. Come on. Come on, say it for me, Dr. Belloff.
Dr. Belloff.
The Paranormal Activity began one night in August 1977. After hearing a series of loud noises, Peggy went into the young girls' room to tell them to settle down and be quiet. Kids had protested that it wasn't them and that the beds were moving independently. A few nights after the first event, the same thing began happening. This time Janet had claimed the chest of drawers in the bedroom was moving. Peggy was now a little annoyed and began pushing the chest of drawers back into place. She was terrified when the chest of drawers moved in front of her very eyes. In a panic, the family ran across the road to their neighbours, the Nottinghams. They asked them to accompany them back into their house. Vic Nottingham, the husband, was a tough man and went into the house alone, but left the house petrified after experiencing loud noises that he could not explain. After this event, nobody wanted to step back foot inside the house, so the police were called. Now, once the police arrived, they too themselves were witness to some of the paranormal activity.
It came off the floor, or nearly a half inch I should say, and I saw it slide off to the right, about 3.5 to 4 feet before it came to rest. I checked to see whether or not it could possibly have slid along the floor. I placed a marble on the floor to see whether or not the marble would go in the same direction as the chair did, and it didn't roll at all. I checked for wires under the cushion of the chair, and I could find no explanation at all.
Now, after these first series of events, paranormal activity continued. Occurrences such as furniture moving, loud noises, cold spots, flickering lights, and objects levitating on their own. Hauntings continued, and the Hodgson family said that more bone-chilling events began to unfold. The appearance of graffiti, unexplained pools of water, matches lighting themselves, and physical attacks on family members. It wasn't too long before the newspapers began to get wind of this story. Many of the journalists who visited the house bore witness to some of the paranormal activity. A photographer by the name of Graham Morris was struck in the head with a Lego brick, carried the mark for several days. A ghost hunter by the name of Maurice Gross from the Society of Psychical Research tasked with investigating the events. It began with thermal cameras and other ghost-catching equipment inside of Janet's bedroom and around the home. Gross had concluded that the Enfield Poltergeist was real. He began living with the family 24 hours a day and was witness to many of the paranormal events.
Well, I think this is probably the best case this century. In fact, as far as documentation is concerned, it may be the best case of all time.
Who's that shaking the door? Oh. What's something? Mum's laughing. Oh! What's that?
The slipper was thrown across the room and hit the door as I was holding the door.
The entity itself has been very, very violent at times, and of course the witnesses and the documentation have been excellent. The furniture moving, the furniture being thrown upside down. In fact, one night I was standing here, there were about 11 or 12 people in the room, and I was standing talking to one of the members of the family, and in front of the settee, and the settee went straight up in the air and turned upside down, right in front of me, no more than a foot away from me.
Some of the best evidence that Maurice Gross had gathered over his time living with the Enfield family were the voice recording tapes of Janet speaking in an unworldly voice.
Why can't Janet feel you?
I'm invisible.
You're invisible. Why are you invisible?
So I'm a G-H-O-S-T.
Did any friends go with you?
Yes, all of them. All the dogs, 68 dogs.
And what do you got 68 dogs for?
So that they can protect me from you killing me. They can guard your riddle.
How can we kill you, Bill?
You can shoot me off.
Now how can we shoot you if we can't see you, Bill?
Back me into God.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Bill.
Back me into God.
By praying to God. So, what you're saying is we could get rid of you by praying to God?
Yes.
It seemed that Janet had been possessed by the poltergeist himself, claiming that his name was Bill Wilkins and that he was a former owner of the house. This case has been contested many times over the years, and there is no real genuine evidence to suggest that what was happening was real. At the same time, there is no real evidence to suggest that it wasn't. Now, the Enfield Poltergeist case is one of them cases that has captured my imagination from a very young age. I remember reading about this in ghost books when I was quite young. I think it is probably the most famous haunting in the UK. I think it's a great case. There's some fantastic evidence to suggest that, this was real. There is some evidence to suggest that it was all faked. Now, one of the main things that sort of always gets me is the family were quite poor at the time. The mother was struggling with money. So when they took this to the press, obviously there was some money given to them. So Were these things perhaps exaggerated to bring the press in and earn some more money out of this? Now, some of the children did actually fake some of the experiences that were going on within the house. Maurice Grosse even said that some of these things have been faked. Now, I'm wondering whether it was just because some of the activity wasn't quite as strong as it could have been, and they were just trying to keep everybody sort of encaptured in the case, and they wanted more things to be happening, so they were sort of exaggerating things themselves, making things happen themselves. One of the strongest pieces of evidence is probably the tapes that Maurice Grosse recorded of Janet talking in this voice of Bill Wilkins. Now, one of the experts was a doctor who was a doctor of the throat and the mouth. Now, they said that anybody talking in this manner, using the specific parts of their voice box, would have a sore throat for days, if not weeks, after talking like this for a certain period of time. Now, Janet was talking in this voice for sometimes hours at a time and experienced no symptoms of sore throats or anything like that. So I think this was a real great piece of evidence that, you know, could have suggested that this was a real happening. One of the biggest things that kind of turns me towards not believing so much in this case is Maurice Grosse. Now, Maurice Grosse came from the Society of Psychical Research. Now, not a lot of people that I've seen do videos or have written about him before. Now, just before he joined the society, he lost his daughter. She sadly passed away. Now, I'm kind of wondering whether he was trying to find evidence of the afterlife where there wasn't really any evidence, just to try and perhaps put his mind at rest that his daughter was somewhere in the afterlife and that he could still have this connection with her. I'm kind of wondering whether that was his motivation towards this case. Now, there have been some great films and TV shows which were heavily based upon the Enfield Poltergeist. Probably the most famous would be The Conjuring Part 2. Now, Ed and Lorraine Warren were involved in this case, but not quite as heavily as the film would suggest. They only visited the Enfield house once, and they claimed that all the happenings that were happening in the house were genuine. Now, I think one of the best pieces of media that have been based upon the Enfield Haunting was something that came out in 1992. I remember watching it live as it was happening. It was a TV show made by the BBC, probably the best thing the BBC have ever made. I think this program was light years ahead of its time. It was a TV show called Ghost Watch. If you've never seen it, please go out and watch it. It was a very heavily complained about TV show. People didn't know if this show was genuine or not. People thought it was live and happening at the time, even though it was pre-recorded. It was so heavily complained about that the BBC have never shown it since. You can buy it on DVD or you can stream it. I really couldn't endorse this TV show enough. I think it was great. Even I, at this young age, when I watched it live, I can't believe my parents let me watch it. I had to wait until the end to see that it was written by somebody in the credits to know that it wasn't genuine. It really, really terrified me. I think this is one of the best pieces of media that was based upon the Enfield Haunting. Okay, I'm going to wrap that video up for today. Really hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've had a great Halloween wherever you are. If you're new here, please subscribe, leave a like. That'd be fantastic. It'd be great to have you here. And hopefully we'll see you on the next one.